9. Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales. 17-year-old Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales had over 1 million followers on his YouTube channel, where he often made videos of himself drinking heavily and being a public menace. While drunk one night in 2017, the influencer made a video directing an emasculating insult at the notorious drug lord Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. Commonly known as El Mencho, Cervantes is considered one of Mexico's most dangerous men and has a $5 million bounty on his head. And his loyal men didn't take too kindly to what Rosales had to say about their boss. While out partying at a bar in Jalisco, a group of armed men from the cartel stormed in and began firing at Rosales, shooting him 18 times. They also killed a bartender who sadly just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time in the line of fire. Rosales likely meant for this to be a stunt to generate shock value and entertain people, but he unfortunately went too far and learned the hard way that there are some things that you just shouldn't joke about. 8. Katya da Silva Saste. Off-duty military police officer Katya da Silva Saste was at a Mother's Day lunch with her 7-year-old son in Sao Paulo, Brazil, back in 2018 when a man tried to commit an armed robbery. He began shooting at a crowd of women and children right outside a school. Katya went from mom mode to cop mode in a split second as she pulled her gun out and shot the violent criminal in the chest. He quickly fell to the ground after 2 shots, and Ms. da Silva Sastre kicked his gun away. The suspect died not long after from his injuries. The Sao Paulo state government recognized the quick-thinking officer for her swift, life-saving actions. Addressing a crowd, da Silva Sastre pointed out how criminals can get out of control fast, and that her first instinct was to do what was necessary to protect the mothers, kids, and guards the gunman was shooting at. While Sao Paulo's homicide rate is much lower than Rio de Janeiro's, violence is unfortunately something people have to be diligent about in all Brazilian cities, where kidnappings, muggings, and assaults happen frequently. 7. Willie Murphy. 82-year-old bodybuilding grandmother Willie Murphy works out daily and is in remarkable shape for her age. But naturally, most people would doubt her ability to take on a much younger, grown man. Willie's strength was put to the test one night in 2019 when a man broke into her Rochester, New York home while she was getting ready for bed. And to the surprise of many, she passed with flying colors. Murphy confidently spoke about the experience to local news station WUHF, stating right off the bat that while she may be old, she's undoubtedly tough. She went on to describe how she picked a table up and used it to beat the intruder while a 911 dispatcher was on the line. The table broke, so she took one of the metal legs and jabbed the man with it before jumping on him. Next, Murphy went into her kitchen, grabbed a bottle of baby shampoo, came back to the living room where the man was still laying on the floor, and poured the entire bottle in his face. She then started hitting him with a broom. At that point, the burglar realized he'd made a huge mistake breaking into this elderly woman's home and decided it was time to leave. Murphy also wanted him to get out and was more than happy to help speed up his exit. But the intruder was having trouble getting up off the floor and was too heavy for Murphy to lift by herself. The man ended up needing to be taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and Murphy later recalled how he seemed relieved to get out of there and away from her. 6. First-degree black belt refuses to be a victim. One night in October 2010, a young Tulsa man named Josh was woken up by his car alarm. Someone had broken into his Jeep the night before, and he wasn't about to let it happen again. He ran outside quickly and chased the thief on foot until he caught up with the man. Josh then yanked the thief to the ground by grabbing his shirt. The pair started to fight, and the burglar then pulled a knife and stabbed Josh. Instead of backing away, Josh, who holds a first-degree black belt in a Korean martial art known as Tang Soo Do, fought for the knife, but punctured his hand in the process. So he began punching the thief in the face, finally letting up after the 11th or 12th hit. Worried that he seriously hurt the guy, Josh ran home to call an ambulance and grab some first aid supplies. But when he came back to the scene of the fight, the thief was gone. Even a police helicopter and ground search crew failed to locate the burglar. Josh ended up getting 36 stitches for his stab wounds, while the police asked the public for help identifying the suspect. It's still unclear whether the thief was ever found. 5. Grandmother outsmarts scammer. A 73-year-old grandmother and former police dispatcher from Long Island named Jean got a phone call earlier this year from someone claiming to be one of her grandsons. The man said he was in jail and was being arrested on a DUI charge, but none of her grandsons were old enough to drive. So Jean immediately knew she was being targeted by a scammer. Jean decided she wasn't going to let this crook get away with pulling a fast one on her. So she played along and engaged in several phone calls before someone claiming to be her grandson's lawyer said he needed $8,000 for bail. She said she had the money in cash at her house and called the police in the meantime to let them know what was happening. Jean was surprised when the scammer agreed to come pick the cash up in person. But sure enough, someone claiming to be a bail bondsman showed up at her door and eagerly took an envelope stuffed with paper towels that she handed him. As he turned to walk away from the house, 2 police officers who had been watching nearby arrested him. The alleged scammer was identified as 28-year-old Joshua Estrella Gomez. He was later charged with third-degree attempted grand larceny. 4. Alan Rolski. Known as the Godfather of Spam, Alan Rolski's extensive spamming career began in 1996 after he lost his license to sell insurance. At the time, the internet was just starting to become a household name, and he saw it as an incredible opportunity to take advantage of people without having to even leave his house. In what's known as a pump and dump scam, he started sending bulk emails to random addresses, advertising cheap stocks with little potential for growth as good opportunities to invest in something that would make a lot of money. Many people happily took the bait and bought up these so-called penny stocks, causing their value to temporarily increase. Once the stocks reached the maximum amount of shares sold, Rolski sold all of his shares and made a large profit at the expense of his victims. The operation started out small and eventually grew to be an international multi-million-dollar scamming operation that even had staff members. Unlike many other scammers, Rolski made little effort to hide his lavish lifestyle and openly spoke to the media, thinking he could smooth-talk the public into believing he was doing nothing wrong. By then, though, a growing number of people had caught on to his egregious and highly illegal business. They were still receiving his junk emails and were fed up, so they decided to give Rolski a taste of his own medicine by spamming his actual mailbox. Savvy internet users came together on a message forum, published Rolski's physical home address, and signed him up for as many junk mail outlets as possible. Soon enough, the crooked businessman was getting bombarded with hundreds of pounds of junk email per day. Rolski was not amused by this influx of spam and claimed he was being unfairly harassed. But the prank became the least of his worries after federal authorities arrested him for his elaborate schemes. He pleaded guilty to a long list of charges, including wire fraud, mail fraud, and money laundering. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. It may not seem like much compared to the gravity of his crimes, but the court of public opinion has been far less forgiving. People are quick to show that they haven't forgotten about Rolski, the disgraced scam artist. 3. Musicians spread a message. Members of the Canadian folk pop group Sons of Maxwell were shocked in 2008 to see United Airlines employees handling their luggage with extreme carelessness while they waited for their flight to Omaha. When they got to their destination, the musicians found that one of their group members' $3,500 guitar had been broken. It belonged to Dave Carroll, and he reached out to the airline to get compensation for the instrument. 9 months later, after spending $1,200 out of pocket on repairs, his request was denied on multiple grounds, including Carroll's alleged failure to file a complaint within 24 hours after the incident. With this disappointing response, the crafty songwriter did what he does best and wrote a song called United Breaks Guitars, detailing his horrific experience with the airline. During the song, he even specifically called out the customer service representative who denied his request for reimbursement. The music video went viral almost instantly, getting over 1 million hits within 4 days. And soon enough, other musicians were coming forward about their experiences with United mishandling their instruments. For a month, United Breaks Guitars was the #1 music video in the world. Carroll even landed a record deal and was invited by the Taylor Manufacturing Company to choose 2 brand new guitars. At the same time, United's stock dropped 10%. And while it was already starting to lose traction before the viral song came out, Carroll's public awareness campaign undoubtedly helped its decline. To make things right, United gave Carroll $1,200 in flight vouchers and $1,200 in cash. His creative way of drawing attention to the problem helped usher in a new era of accountability when it comes to the customer service companies provide. The situation also gave customers a new way to seek justice for their belongings. 2. Father takes justice into his own hands. In 1982, a French accountant named André Bamberski was 44 years old when he got the worst phone call of his life, saying his teenage daughter, Kalinka, had died under mysterious circumstances. An autopsy found evidence that someone had attacked her, showing injuries and injection marks, leading Bamberski to suspect Kalinka's stepfather, a doctor named Dieter Krombach, could have killed her. Police failed to re-interview Krombach, even though he was the last person that saw Kalinka alive, and the stories he initially gave weren't adding up. Krombach was a doctor, and it seemed like he might have had help covering up evidence and avoiding an investigation. Bamberski campaigned relentlessly for his daughter's alleged killer to be prosecuted. Even after France declared Krombach a wanted man, Germany refused to extradite him, and he became difficult to track down. After nearly 30 years went by with no action from law enforcement, Bamberski took justice into his own hands in 2009. Knowing the statute of limitations for pursuing the murder was nearly up, he paid several men 5 figures to kidnap Krombach and bring him to France, where he could finally be arrested and tried for Kalinka's murder. As promised, the men kidnapped 74-year-old Krombach in Germany, drove him to France, and beat him up before leaving him chained to a fence near a police station. During his trial, several other women came forward and testified about being assaulted and abused by Krombach in ways that matched Kalinka's autopsy. Justice was finally served in 2011 when Krombach received a 15-year prison sentence for his crimes. He was released from prison in 2020 for health reasons and died later that year. And while it's unfortunate that he got away with his sickening actions for most of his life, he at least paid some of his debt to society thanks to one father's fierce refusal to let his daughter's attacker walk free. 1. Michael Irving. One night in 2017, a 62-year-old former U.S. Marine named Michael Irving answered the door at his home in Theodore, Alabama. He came face to face with 3 intruders who immediately shot him. Luckily, a plexiglass door frame slowed down the bullets enough for Irving to survive. From that point on, his military instincts took over. Irving rushed over to a cabinet where he had a vintage pistol and quickly shot all 3 men. He didn't want to kill them, so he avoided aiming at their chests. Thanks to his quick thinking, the burglars were taken down before they could cause any further harm. They were treated at a nearby hospital and then arrested for their crimes. Irving later told local news station WKRG that his military training taught him to react quickly in the face of danger before giving fear a chance to take over. By the time the intrusion happened, he had been battling cancer for 2 years and had already been victimized in a previous burglary by thieves who stole his medication. And he made sure this time that wouldn't happen again. Thanks for watching. Have you found yourself in a situation gone wrong? Or let a joke go too far? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.